what do we have here? Is it the Ferrum Forge Archbishop? I mean, that seems unlikely since it says EF on there, and that's Eafengrow. Kind of looks like a Archbishop, though. I'll put a picture of that right here. See how it kind of looks similar? The flipper tab doesn't look the same because, well, in part because I trimmed it. Because it was really big before. You can see where it says D2 right there, halfway cut off, because it used to be like this long. The action isn't bad. Look at the size of that blade. That's a ridiculously thick blade. That's crazy thick. Pretty sure the Archbishop doesn't have a blade nearly that thick. It's like when Eafengrow wants to copy a knife, they just have an outline. They just have a picture of it, and they just kind of copy the picture as far as the shape, but they don't really know how thick everything's supposed to be because they didn't even bother to buy an Archbishop to copy it. So it's, I mean, it doesn't say Ferrum Forge on it. It's not a forgery. It's not a Ferrum Forgery. So they're not trying to sell it as a Ferrum Forge, but it's like Eafengrow doesn't have designers. I mean, they have designers, obviously. They had to take the Ferrum Forge design and kind of feed it into their existing template that they make knives around. I mean, these two screws aren't in the same place. This thing is just the standard Eafengrow type screw. So that's kind of what they do when they do their little copycat deals. Does it look exactly like the Ferrum Forge? I mean, even the shape isn't exactly right. This part goes flat, I think, on the Ferrum Forge, and it doesn't have this little cutout right here. I don't think there's a lanyard hole, is there? I don't remember. Maybe you'll see the picture right up here. These screws are in a different place. I mean, it's Ferrum Forge makes a G10 model, but this is way different. It's not flat G10, it's contoured. So it's contoured kind of a little bit more like the titanium Ferrum Forge one. It also has these kind of dumb looking little level changes on the G10. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but as you can see, I already kind of started grinding it off because I think it looks stupid. So I'm just going to grind the whole thing out kind of flat. Not flat, contoured, but not with these dumb little... it's almost like they're supposed to be contour maps, kind of. I think on the Ferrum Forge one, it has jimping, but on a backspacer. This one doesn't have a backspacer and has jimping on the sides. I think I'm going to cut that down a little bit too, so these giant jimping things are rounded and just kind of weird. It'd be cool if they're a little lower and flatter, so I'm going to probably cut those down a little bit. To make it look less like a fake Archbishop, I think I'm going to take this curve and kind of continue straight from there back here. Kind of cut off that little point there to kind of, I don't know, make it look a little different. Thinking about maybe doing a little Bowie cut here too. Something like that. We'll do some stuff to it though, make it a little different. Give it its own personality instead of just being a Eafengrow copy. Not much I can do about the gigantically thick blade though. I mean, I could try to grind it down some, but it was a $26 knife, so I ain't putting that much effort into it. The stuff I want to do is fairly easy stuff. Good action on it though. Although, okay, it's fairly good action. It's just about drop shutty. Easy to flick, easy to open. Even with the cut down flipper tab, it still shoots out nice. You can see how this flipper tab sticks barely out now. Compare that to the regular, or how the Eafengrow normally comes. I'll put a picture of that over here. You can see it's trimmed down a lot. They usually stick out to here-ish. Still can't really focus here. Focus. About here. Normally the flipper tab sticks out. This is way better. It's a good knife though. I mean, D2. I think this has been tested by Love Them Knives, and it's come out to be actual D2. The G10, this natural G10, is kind of anemic looking color. I mean, it seems good, like good G10, but you know, that nice jade color that some of it is, this is obviously not that. I mean, that is what color it is, sort of a grayish green. So, we'll get this thing modified a little bit and come back. So what do we have now? We have more contouring, and we actually have a shorter body right through here. Let's see if we can compare it to the original one. This used to come up and a little higher and then kind of curve back in. So a little shorter overall. We got down onto these jimping spots and flattened off the top of them so they're a little more grippy, and then curved over this back edge some more. It used to kind of come out and a little more of a point, not pointy, but a little more like that and not quite so curvy. So we curved that over with the sander just to make it look a little different than it did, so it doesn't look so obviously like a Ferrum Forge copy. I think if I do a little Bowie cut right here, a little curve out cut, that'll really kind of separate it from. Did a little bit of work on this side. I got to get this clip off, do a little, and I'm probably just going to take the scales all the way off. I wanted to work on it while it had the frame still attached so I could cut down the frame at the same time. As long as you keep everything cool, it doesn't hurt anything. You don't want to get these frame bits so hot, grinding on them for a long period of time. They can warp, they can miscolor, they can even maybe damage the G10 if they get hot enough. Anyway, we'll work a little bit more on it. Since we're here, we might as well just do a little breakdown of the Eafengrow EF928. Looks like the pivot can spin, so it doesn't have a D-shaped pivot or collar or anything like that, because as I started unscrewing the one side, the other side was spinning. So yeah, you might need two tools to take this apart. Usually not. They usually just press your thumb on one side, unscrew the other. It works good. That's what happened there. I think that's a T8. Yeah, I can't see. Yeah, no. T8, I think, yeah. Let's see, I think T6 is probably on the body screws and the, yeah, so all the rest are T6s, I think. Yup. Let's get these guys out of here. Coming out pretty good. Doesn't feel like they got any Loctite on them. Let's see if they're different sizes. That can be a pain in the butt. Those are some big long screws, man, for holding on G10. Usually your scale screws are not that long, but these are excessively thick scales. I'm not going to check and see if these guys are a different length. We'll just keep them with the clip so we don't. Oh, that came off so easily. Wow. It's got some water inside because I've been dipping it in water to keep it cool. This is really not badly done. A lot of Eafengrows that kind of have a janky appearance once you take them apart, but this guy, the cutouts are pretty well done, pretty smoothed out. Huh. Well, if you look in there, you'll see where the bearings have been running. and they've been leaving a track. Bearings shouldn't leave a track that easily unless you really cranked them down too tight or something. That guy, yeah, we'll finish him up. We don't want to cut too deeply where the screws go, or else the heads will be poking up. So that's one thing. If you're messing with G10, you don't want to do that. And you want to leave the area where your clip is fairly flat, although it wasn't flat to begin with. It has those silly, I don't know, levels going on. So that's pretty weird. We don't want to cut down around this pivot area too much either, or else the pivot will be kind of sticking up and exposed. So we'll leave that area high and just kind of cut down from there. But what I was going to say was, this thing has always had, I mean, I haven't had it very long, but has had since I got it, a light detent. And I think the detent ball, that's the detent ball right there. That's what, when your blade is closed, let's grab the blade. See how this thing works. And grab the pivot too. Alright, we'll just take a pivot and stick it through here. Okay, we'll look at the blade. We'll say, when this blade is in the closed position, okay, here it is open. Here it is closing, and you can see the little hole in the blade right there, poking through right there. That hole lines up with this little ball when it's closed. That's what keeps it closed. That's your closing detent. So when that ball hits that point, boop, it falls into the hole, and the blade won't move easily until you give it a flip or a flick, and then it kind of bounces the ball out of the hole and opens. So I'm noticing, just looking at this ball, it doesn't seem to be pushed out far enough. So I think it should be sticking out a little further, and then maybe it'll be a more positive lock on the blade as it's in the closed position. So I think I can take a little punch, a very tiny punch, put it in there, and give it a couple of taps, a little tappity tap tap, and see if that ball wants to come poking out a little further, poking its head out a little further like a little groundhog. Since frickin' winter's over, man, it's time to poke out and do your jab. Alright, we'll do some work and come back. What do we have here now? So take a look at those scales. They don't have that weird step pattern on them anymore. Take a look at the liners. They're polished now. Probably should have polished that clip. That would have looked nice. I still might. Look at the shape of the handle now. Instead of coming up, it kind of comes out of that finger groove curve and then just kind of goes straight. Oh, the blade doesn't have that kind of spear point. Now it's got a drop point. I was going to do a Bowie type of, indented cut, but it didn't look right when I started doing it. So we just did a straight line, fairly straight line, about as straight as line as I can do. Drop point type blade. Polished up where I cut the flipper tab down some. I mean, this thing has a solid 2.5 hours into it, maybe at least 2 hours, 2.25 or something like that. It's centered up pretty good, I think. Yeah, feels nice. Action's good. So was it worth it to put 2.5 hours into a $25 knife and probably still another 20 minutes or 10 minutes at least doing this? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now it's really not so much of a copy of a Ferrum Forge Archbishop. Now it's kind of more its own thing, kind of more my thing. I think that's worth it. And plus, I think it's a good knife down underneath all the fake Ferrum Forge stuff. It's like Eafengrow messes up sometimes and makes a really good knife. Now, most of the time they're kind of sketchy and questionable, but down deep inside, this one's pretty good. So, there we go. The Eafengrow EF928 with some modifications. Have a nice day.